Welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. I am Maria Isabel Rios, joined by David A. Fields. Hi, David.
Hey, Maria Isabel. It's always good to see you on a Monday.
Great to see you on a Monday, and we're live again. So, for those of you who have been with us before, welcome back. For those of you who are new, we take your questions and we answer them in the hopes of helping you grow your consulting firm and helping you have a more delightful consulting leader experience. We jump right into it. Deidre, if you can, please pull the first question up. Okay, so David, this question is for you.
Okay.
How hard should I push to speak with a decision maker? I'm talking to the VP. He's collecting the proposals from my firm and others and presenting them to the CEO. This question is from Dan, and it's one we get in some shape or form quite a few times. So, David, what do you think? What should Dan do?
And this is a particular variant where it's clearly a competitive situation. So we'll address that, and I think we'll maybe just address it in general. I mean, this is a judgment call. So, I mean, keep in mind, if you're not talking with the decision maker directly, your likelihood of winning the project is cut in half. Just straightforward, cut in half. Now, that doesn't mean you can't win the project or you won't win the project, but you're definitely much less likely to win a project if you're not talking with a decision maker. And there are times, I think probably more times than most people watching would realize, that if you stick to your guns and simply say, for us to move to the next step, I need a few minutes with the decision maker, that the gatekeeper will relent. Excuse me. Even if everyone else who submitted a proposal has said, oh, yeah, sure, here's a proposal. That doesn't mean you can't say, I'm happy to submit a proposal. I just need at least a few minutes with the decision maker. And also keep in mind that while it's preferable to have a deep context discussion with the decision maker and a chance to build trust, you'll still increase your odds with even a 5-minute conversation in which the decision maker approves your context, prior to you submitting the proposal. So it doesn't have to be long, just a few minutes. And then, this may have been a case. It's hard for me to know. There are cases where you simply cannot, reach the decision maker. So then you just have to decide whether it's worth your time and effort for a lower probability prospect. If it's a huge project, and if it's a $500,000 project, which for most of our listeners would count as a very sizable project, and you think you have a pretty good chance of winning, even without talking to the decision maker, then keep going and take your chances. So this is my kind of overall view on it. Maria Isabel, anything you want to add or change?
I think sometimes folks assume that speaking with a decision maker means your counterpart is not in the conversation. Much to the contrary, right? If you can have a three-way conversation, that's also richer. It gives you the opportunity to tell to whomever is managing the process and put you in front of the CEO in this case, look, I have deeper, also very interesting questions to ask, and I know how to speak with your CEO at a one-to-one level. So don't assume the
you're
person
absolutely right.
Shouldn't be in the room either.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, I'm not sure how many folks we have live versus listening after on this one. If you're live, type into the comments whether you always talk with the decision maker or you sometimes don't, and how you've approached it. Don Garbutt, sometimes rules don't permit dealing with anyone other than a designated, there you
Exactly.
Especially like in an RFP situation, or if you're dealing with government type of projects, there are strict rules. They are ill-conceived. I mean, they think, oh yeah, this will help and allow an arm's length relationship. But in fact, what they do is they make it harder for consultants to actually help whoever the client is figure out the right project. But point well taken, Don. Anyone else have thoughts on decision makers or questions or follow-up questions? Just post them in here and we'll get to them. But and Karen, 90% talking decision maker, usually small business owners. Yeah, so small business owners are usually a bit easier. Let's keep questions coming. And Karen, thanks for that comment. Deidre, what's our next question? And Maria Isabel, whatever it is, it's yours because you gave me the first one. Okay.
All right.
Um,
Okay.
how do we make our core values visible to staff? Ooh, I love this. I know you say this is an important part of cementing an on-purpose culture, but I'm not sure what to do. So Carol asked this. What do you think, Maria Isabel?
Well, Carol, good on you. Prioritizing, putting time against your culture and your core values is one very valuable contribution to your firm. So good on you, Carol, and thank you for asking the question. I'm going to highlight, as way of response, a few elements of our 9-step strong strong offering for boutique firms. So we do work on boutique firms in their culture, and some of the steps have to do with value alignment. So 4 elements to highlight right away that anyone can implement regardless of your firm size. First one is you talk about your values. Bring them as part of what you talk about as a firm, right? In the context of your firm conversations, of how you address clients and how you work with the team, highlight them by name and talk about them. The second element that I would propose is that you create moments weekly, monthly, and quarterly where you specifically talk about your values and what they mean and how you're bringing them into action. Right. So you have an opportunity to highlight these are our values. This is how we've seen them into action this past week, this past month, this past quarter, and highlight stories right around them. The third element I would propose is create initiatives. How do you put your values in action? So if you have a team, Carol, have your team pick how do they want to work on highlighting your values and on bringing your values into the day-to-day and on demonstrating those values to yourselves and to your clients. And the last one is leverage visuals. So if you can create screen backgrounds for your team to have available, if you have Slack, put them on Slack so that they're constantly visible to you and to the team. And so they become part of your everyday and also an important component of what it means to be a part of your team. 4 things for you, Carol, to keep in mind as a starter. David, what do you add to that?
Well, I was listening and going, wait, do we do this as a firm? And I think we, so
actually we do.
Yeah, we do most of those. So we talk about, everybody sees our core values every week, and then we choose one to highlight each week. So yeah, and it helps over time. You start to go, oh yeah, those are our 6 values, and I think everyone on our team knows our core values. So all the things you said, I think, are an excellent start to making them visible. That is outstanding. Also, Tim, thank you for your comment about decision makers, which I appreciate. And same invitation for those of you who are listening. If you have thoughts about making culture visible for your staff, if you have staff, even for your clients,
right?
How do you do that? I think it would be interesting to get your take on that.
As you type and share, Deidre, can you pull up the next question, and I'm going to bring it back to
All right.
David. All right, David, this one's for you. I'm constantly getting squeezed on cash flow. I have great contracts, but clients pay net 90 or even net 120. Ouch. I have to pay my team, so I end up in a precarious cash flow position. And this question is from Care, Brad, and others.
Yeah. So yeah, we get this a fair amount. I mean, this is a challenging situation, and Ouch is right. I agree with you. 120 days. If you're paying your folks soon and you're waiting 120 days, that can put you in a cash crunch. And a lot of consulting firms face this, especially if you're contracting with multi-billion-dollar corporations that have, huge procurement groups and all these rules. So what we've found is, in most cases, you can negotiate better. So I think with Claire and Brad, I don't remember. So if you have this challenge, the first line I'm going to tell you is there's actually room for you to negotiate. A lot of our clients have these huge clients with these onerous contracts, and they're able to negotiate down to more reasonable terms. So that's one point. I also, this makes me, anytime a client has this, one question I have is just their fundamental contract structure. Because where we see this problem most often is firms that bill on a time and materials basis, and they bill based on work that's completed. And if you do that, it means, you come to the end of the month and you tally up the actual hours, and maybe a week, or it might be the 15th of the week, whenever you process your invoices, you send an invoice based on those actual hours. So you're waiting 90 or 120 days, or maybe it's even 135 days to get paid, but your staff won't wait that long, and nor should they. I mean, that's just a terrible structure in a ton of ways. Uh, and I would suggest, even if you're going to bill on a time and materials basis, and there are cases to bill time materials, that doesn't mean you have to bill that way in arrears. You can bill up front. I'd recommend 50% of estimated total fees up front, and then reconcile as you go. You can continuously bill ahead of the work. And we've successfully negotiated contract terms like that many times. So that's kind of the get out in front of it approach. There's another strategy I think I would consider, which we call the quarter ahead cash flow model. And that basically just means always staying 90 days ahead in your cash flow. It means using today's cash to pay tomorrow's expenses. And then you're not worried about, when tomorrow comes, you're not as worried about it. Deborah commented that she negotiates payment in advance and requires a deposit. Exactly right. 50, same thing, Karen. Raul also. Yes, you'll get a lot of support for that. It can be harder in certain types of contracts, but not as hard as you might think. What do you think, Maria Isabel? Agree, disagree? Anything you want to throw on top of that?
Absolutely agree. I think part of the insight, and we often see this also in management consulting firms, right? Where folks are doing strategy consulting. They're like, well, first installment is at the end of phase one, however long phase one may take. And the invitation is to say, no, look, spread it out, separate it from your delivery, point one. And two, a portion of it gets billed upfront, right? So even if you're running against a 60-day payment lag because of process and procurement processes, you're not running a 60-day payment lag from the moment you've delivered phase one. In this example, you're running a 60-day payment lag from the moment you signed your contract. You minimize that window.
Yeah, that is exactly right. I mean, it does happen to all sorts of firms. And if you're hitting this kind of cash flow challenge, again, I think there's an upfront way to manage it, which we've been talking about. And Isabel, you covered that very well. And then there's sort of the internal operational approach, which can be a little bit awkward sometimes. And you'll have to review that with your accountant. Sometimes it takes a little while for accountants to understand how to manage a consulting firm. You would think they'd know because they're professional service providers themselves, but they often don't get our world, and they're trying to always recognize revenue, when you're doing the work, which is fine, but you need to manage cash flow, and that's a little bit different.
David, one element, Don, you shared that sometimes subcontractors agree to get paid once you get paid. That is a commonly used model.
Yep.
Not every subcontractor will be open to taking that risk with you.
Absolutely agree.
They have special consideration when you have subcontractors that are not willing to assume the risk of getting paid, right? Of the client paying and not the timing of that payment.
Exactly. So good point, Don. And thank you for calling that out, Maria Isabel. And we've already hit our 15 minutes. So folks, before you go, one quick announcement. Next week won't be live because it's holiday here in the States. So we won't be doing it live. In addition, if you are not connected with Maria Isabel or me on LinkedIn, please connect. We love connecting with you on LinkedIn. And this is where we get a lot of our questions, is from you on LinkedIn. If you do not get our weekly articles, definitely subscribe. Very easy, davidafields.com, subscribe. And if the illustrations don't make you laugh, you can always unsubscribe. This week is going to be particularly punny. Submit questions for next week's session at info@davidafields.com. And the last thing is you can make sure you're here every week by using the link that Deidre or I think actually Jaren's working the controls this week, put here, davidafields.com/Monday Live. So with that, Marie Isabel, it was good to see you. And the rest of you, thank you for being here. Have a fabulous couple of weeks. Remember, consulting's about them, not you. It's about your clients and prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Ciao. Thanks for your participation.